On this Saturday night, preparing to evacuate the hantavirus-stricken ship. The crews arriving to the Canary Islands within hours.
People may think that the risk is growing. It's not.
The plans for the passengers, including 4 Canadians. Victory Day in Russia, why the Kremlin's annual military parade looked a lot different. Protecting kids from energy drinks.
Energy drinks have potential dangers.
One family's tragic tale and call for change. Plus, help for the cocaine hippos. Descendants of animals owned by Pablo Escobar are set to be culled, but just received a lifeline.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. The luxury cruise ship struck by that deadly hantavirus outbreak is expected to drop anchor in Spain within hours. The MV Hondius is carrying 147 passengers and crew from more than 24 countries, including 4 Canadians who've been trapped on board for weeks. Officials say none are showing any symptoms. The ship is expected to arrive in Tenerife early Sunday morning local time. Governments from around the world are now preparing plans to repatriate their citizens.
Some countries will actually put passengers together. The United States and Canada, for example, are discussing sharing a plane. There are some planes that will carry EU passengers. So we're trying to also support the airport in Canary Islands because it's a small airport.
Now, once the ship arrives, officials will have to move fast. A storm is approaching the island that could cause days of delay. Candace Cole reports now on the extraordinary effort to bring the passengers home without putting others at risk.
The World Health Organization will begin a coordinated effort to disembark passengers aboard the MV Hondius cruise ship Sunday morning following an outbreak of the rare but deadly hantavirus. Officials say small boats will take groups of passengers to the dock on the Spanish island of Tenerife, where they will undergo a medical screening.
If there's anybody that develops symptoms, anybody that has symptoms, they will immediately go to a medical evacuation plane and be taken to the Netherlands for care.
Passengers who are considered healthy will be able to return home. Germany, Ireland, France, Belgium, and the Netherlands have organized flights for their citizens, while the European Union will fly other EU citizens to their home countries. Spain's interior minister says passengers will only be able to leave the ship once their specific country's aircraft is on the tarmac, ready to depart. They'll be transported to their planes by the Spanish Army. The U.S. and U.K. will step in to transport non-EU citizens. U.S. President Donald Trump officially withdrew the United States from the World Health Organization in January over what he called profound failures in its handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. When asked Friday if he would reconsider the decision due to the hantavirus outbreak, Trump said,
"No, we seem to have things under very good control. They know that virus very well. It's been around a long time. Not easily transferable, unlike COVID, but we'll see. We're studying it very closely."
While hantavirus is typically spread by rodents, the World Health Organization found some of those passengers were infected with the Andes strain, the only one that can be passed between humans. Though officials say people shouldn't be too worried.
We classify everybody on board as what we call a high-risk contact. So the risk to the general public is low.
The hantavirus outbreak was first reported May 2nd after 34 people had already left the ship. Health officials are still working to trace those passengers and their contacts. American passengers aboard that ship will be taken to a quarantine center in Nebraska. Candace Cole, Global News, Washington.
Some local residents in Tenerife have been protesting plans to receive the ship. Their island was the scene of one of Europe's first COVID-19 lockdowns in February 2020. Well, today, the head of the WHO arrived on the island to personally oversee the ship's arrival and reassure residents that the disease is not another COVID-19.
One is because of the very nature of the disease itself, but second, the risk is low because the Spanish government has made all the preparations.
The WHO's Director General said he also wanted to personally thank and pay tribute to an island that has responded to a difficult situation with dignity, solidarity, and compassion. Turning to tragic news from the nation's capital tonight, a 2-year-old child has died after being rescued from the Ottawa River. Police responded shortly before 7 p.m. yesterday to reports of a missing toddler. A massive search was launched involving divers, tactical teams, and an air support unit. The child was spotted about 40 minutes later in the river. They were brought ashore and rushed to hospital in critical condition, but did not survive. Police are now investigating and released a statement offering condolences to the family and others involved in the heartbreaking incident. The U.S. is still waiting on a response from Iran tonight on its proposal to end the war as tensions flare around the Strait of Hormuz. On Friday, U.S. President Donald Trump said he expected to receive a response last night, though there's been no update since. The proposal would require Iran to agree not to develop a nuclear weapon and hand over all enriched nuclear material. For now, a fragile ceasefire appears to be holding, despite several tit-for-tat naval strikes in the Strait of Hormuz in recent days, with both sides accusing each other of attacking first. And another supposed ceasefire in Lebanon appears to be crumbling, with more strikes exchanged between Israel and Hezbollah, the Iran-backed militant group. At least 23 people were killed in the latest Israeli attack. Israel says it was responding to a Hezbollah drone strike that wounded 3 of its soldiers. And it's a similar story in Gaza, where Palestinians are now sifting through the rubble after an Israeli strike on a camp on Friday. Despite last year's Israel-Hamas ceasefire, sporadic strikes have continued in the enclave, with both sides blaming each other for truce violations. And a U.S. brokered ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine came into force this morning and so far appears to be holding. The 3-day deal includes an exchange of 1,000 prisoners from each side. The ceasefire coincides with Victory Day, the annual event commemorating the Soviets' victory over Nazi Germany. The Russian president used the occasion to defend his war in Ukraine, which Putin claimed is achieving its goals. But as Vincent McAviney reports, this year's parade told a different story.
Emptied streets, security checkpoints in place, central Moscow in lockdown for Victory Day, Russia's most revered national holiday, celebrating the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany. While troops marched as normal, alongside North Korean soldiers who have joined them on the battlefield in Ukraine, Saturday's parade looked and felt very different. There were noticeably fewer world leaders and guests in the stands, and far fewer foreign journalists invited. Most tellingly, though, the usual tanks and ballistic missiles were absent. At the 2025 parade, Moscow was still able to showcase its military hardware as a projection of power. This year, security concerns meant they could only demonstrate them on video screens, with the Kremlin, prior to the ceasefire, fearing attack from Ukraine's increasingly sophisticated long-range drones. President Putin still took the opportunity to denounce NATO and claim his forces will win. Everyone is making a personal contribution behind the lines. I'm firmly convinced that our case is just. We are together, and victory has always been and will always be ours. New figures calculated by exiled Russian journalists estimate that Putin had sacrificed over 350,000 soldiers by the end of 2025. Despite a boost from the recent spike in oil prices, the economic cost is also piling up, with cuts being made to pensions and infrastructure spending. Recent polling shows Putin's popularity plummeting, with the recent shutdown of mobile internet on security grounds further weakening his support. In Kyiv, they've also been paying homage to the 27 million Soviet citizens, many of them Ukrainian, who perished in World War II. But their focus is on ending today's war. President Zelensky taunted Moscow, saying he had given them permission to hold their parade. Its scaled-down pageantry is seen as a morale-boosting sign for them and for their allies in the West, that Putin can no longer conceal the strain of his so-called special military operation. Vincent McAviney, Global News, London.
Thousands took to the streets of Budapest today as Hungary officially turned the page on Viktor Orban. Péter Magyar was sworn in as the country's new prime minister, ending Orban's 16-year grip on power. Magyar's center-right party won nearly 3/4 of the seats in last month's election. The European Union flag, which had been removed by Orban, was raised once again outside Hungary's parliament for the first time in 12 years. Magyar is promising to bring Hungary back into the European fold and unlock billions of dollars in aid for funding Ukraine. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is fighting for his political life, vowing to stay on as Labour leader after a bruising round of local election results.
It's very important that we do reflect on what was a tough set of results, but I'm not going to walk away and plunge the country into chaos. I think the right thing to do is to rebuild and show the path forward.
Labour lost control of 35 councils and more than 1,000 seats across England on Thursday. The party also lost control of Wales for the first time in a century. Labour was squeezed on all sides by the hard-right Reform UK, the Greens, and anti-establishment independents. Reform, led by Nigel Farage, was the night's big winner. Calls are growing for Starmer to resign, with some MPs warning a formal leadership challenge could come as early as Monday. Well, it's been a historic 24 hours for Toronto sports fans. The Toronto Tempo played their first regular season game in the WNBA in front of a sold-out crowd of 8,200. Sadly, the team came up just short in their debut, losing 68-65 to the Washington Mystics. And earlier today, a record crowd of nearly 45,000 people watched as Lionel Messi scored a clinical strike against Toronto FC. It was the largest crowd ever in the BMO Stadium. 17,000 seats have just been added ahead of next month's World Cup, though it remains the smallest venue among the 16 host cities. This game was considered something of a dress rehearsal for the World Cup. It's the last event to be held there before FIFA takes control of the stadium next week. And ahead of the World Cup, Toronto has shut down one of its busiest roadways for repairs. The Don Valley Parkway is closed all weekend, causing traffic chaos. The annual spring maintenance to fix potholes and guardrails is now on an accelerated schedule before the city welcomes 300,000 visitors for the soccer tournament, which kicks off on June the 12th. The Prince pays tribute, coming up. The heir to the throne delivers a 100th birthday message to a beloved broadcaster. Plus, why a new AI data center in Atlantic Canada is sparking protests. Prince William paid tribute to British broadcaster and natural historian David Attenborough on his 100th birthday. The Prince praised Attenborough's boundless curiosity, gentle wisdom, and unwavering dedication to the planet.
It is a rare privilege to celebrate a century of life, but it is rarer still when that person has transformed the way we see the only home that we have, planet Earth.
Attenborough's centenarian celebrations are being marked across the British capital with special broadcasts on the BBC, a live concert, museum events, and nature walks. And environmental concerns are driving some New Brunswick residents to protest a planned AI data center in a small community near St. John. As Johnny James reports, demonstrators say they're worried about emissions, noise pollution, and a lack of public transparency.
St. John's King Square was full with protesters Saturday morning with a clear message to send. A 390-megawatt data center run by Beacon AI has been proposed for the community of Lorneville, just outside the port city. Protest organizers Lauren Smith and Sarah Nelson, who started the Resist Data Center NB Facebook page, say the ramifications for such a center will impact the whole province, regardless of where it is located, and say their main concern is the lack of public information that has been provided thus far.
We're not getting any information. Our city council hasn't given us information, and it's being pushed forward.
Nelson says there are plenty of reasons to be fearful when you look to examples south of the border.
In Virginia, in the U.S., in the past 5 years, energy bills have gone up 297%. They have the most data centers in the U.S. right now. So there's proof in the pudding. The facts are there.
The proposal's environmental impact assessment says the center would produce 6.6% of the province's 2023 emissions total. Chris Watson, a Lorneville resident and research scientist at the University of New Brunswick, says that's not the only red flag. He claims the baseline acoustic study for the proposal gives inaccurate noise levels for the area that will determine how much excess excess noise pollution the center will cause.
They did it over 24 hours next to a road and next to a snowmobile trail. And so when they established the baseline sound at night, for example, they basically averaged over all these intermittent noises from traffic and snowmobiles.
Nelson says another demonstration is in the works for the coming weeks at the Legislative Assembly in Fredericton. Johnny James, Global News, St. John.
Still ahead, calls to restrict the sale of energy drinks after a 15-year-old dies in Quebec. A Quebec pharmacy chain has now removed energy drinks from its shelves in New Brunswick due to health concerns. It comes after a 15-year-old's death, which his family claims was linked to the beverages. The tragedy has now sparked public debate and a petition demanding a ban on sales of the caffeinated drinks to youth under 16. Suzanne Lapointe reports.
Jim Shepard lost his 15-year-old son Brian in 2008 after he experienced a fatal arrhythmia. Shepard believes it was due to his consumption of an energy drink and now advocates for restrictions on youth access.
Parents tell their kids, here's the deal about alcohol, about tobacco products, here's the dangers. And then when they go to the store, if they want to experiment, then they can't, because there's an age restriction. Energy drinks have potential dangers.
He says he's happy to see a push in Quebec to stop those under 16 from buying energy drinks. Quebec's Order of Pharmacists asked pharmacies to remove energy drinks from their shelves in reaction to the death of a 15-year-old boy who experienced a fatal drug interaction with his ADHD medication. Quebec pharmacy chain Family Prix, which has 9 locations in New Brunswick, has already removed them from shelves.
And especially right now, what's a concern is the potential interactions with psychostimulants that are commonly used to treat ADHD. So that's why we decided to remove energy drinks that contain caffeine, which is a stimulant.
New Brunswick does not currently have any age restrictions on the sale of energy drinks, but the New Brunswick Medical Society told Global News it supports an evidence-based review of youth access to energy drinks. From a medical perspective, these products raise legitimate health concerns for children and adolescents. Shepard hopes Quebec will be the first of many provinces to restrict youth access to energy drinks.
If you put every province on a map and made it into a domino, if one falls, I think you're going to see big changes in North America.
The Canadian Beverages Association argues energy drinks are already highly regulated by Health Canada. Suzanne Lapointe, Global News, Moncton.
A Frontier Airlines plane struck and killed a pedestrian during takeoff at Denver International Airport on Friday night.
Oh my God, I thought she was.
The incident sparked an engine fire and forced passengers to evacuate. A spokesperson for the airport said the victim jumped the perimeter fence and is not believed to be an employee of the airport. 12 passengers on board suffered minor injuries. 5 were taken to hospital. Frontier Airlines says an investigation is now underway in coordination with the airport and transport authorities. Up next, Hippo Reprieve, the controversial plan to save Pablo Escobar's exotic pets. Well, take a look at this. This grizzly in Alberta is getting into the swing of spring. The bear was spotted at a lodge near Canmore, and it also took some time for a back scratch in the parking lot. Guests enjoyed the spectacle from the safety of the lodge. And turning to another strange animal story now, arguably the strangest environmental debate happening right now anywhere on Earth. Colombia is struggling with what to do with dozens of so-called cocaine hippos, descendants of animals that once belonged to drug lord Pablo Escobar. They're not native to South America and have caused chaos for local communities, sparking a controversial plan to cull a large part of their herd. But as Mike Armstrong explains, there may be a last-minute hope for the hippos.
It's a problem they shouldn't have. Fishermen out on a river in South America worrying about animals that belong an ocean away. Hippos are territorial, unpredictable, and fast. No one in Colombia has been killed by one, but some say it's just a matter of time. This fisherman says the animals have to be euthanized. It's their life or ours, he says. There are about 200 hippos in and around the Magdalena River Basin, but their numbers are growing and spreading over a wider area. At times, they're just out roaming the streets. This man says they see the hippos every day, and something has to be done. Now, the entire problem started in the early 80s with just 4 hippos. They were imported from Africa by Pablo Escobar, the man who ran the Medellin drug cartel. The cocaine kingpin was pulling in hundreds of millions of dollars a week and basically had more money than he could spend. Well, one of the things he did was set up a personal zoo. For most of the animals, that wasn't a problem. It was a big one in the case of hippos. In Colombia, they have no predators, and it turns out the climate is perfect. From 4, there are now hundreds, and authorities believe by 2035, there could be 1,000. The plan was to cull 80 in the coming months, but there may now be a reprieve. The Environment Ministry is confirming experts from a wildlife center in India are going to visit. The center is owned by the son of Asia's richest man, and they're looking at potentially moving dozens of hippos to India. Senator Andrea Padilla has been fighting the cull for years. The hippo situation was born of violence and drug trafficking, she says. More death and bullets shouldn't be the solution. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
And that is Global National for this Saturday night. I'm Jeff Semple. We leave you with a colorful gift in Toronto. 15,000 tulips were presented by the Consulate General of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. The annual event, called Tulip Day, commemorates the liberation of the Netherlands during the Second World War and the role Canadian soldiers played in that victory. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you back here again tomorrow. Have a great night.